There we go. There's our live stream. All right, Susan Michelle, Surrender to Joy. This mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. It is so great to be here as always. I am in Western Massachusetts, my hometown, and the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. I am the author of Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we are all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. And when I can live in sync with A Course in Miracles teachings, I feel the peace of God, the peace, love, joy, and happiness of God. And when I block that love with the egoic thought system, it just doesn't feel as great. So it's a constant practice, it's a constant discipline, but it is well worth the effort because when I feel that peace, love, joy, and happiness of God, all is well in my world. So, in the introduction of my book, Surrender to Joy, I write, my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. There is nothing to find in the world because there is no world. A Course in Miracles tells us over and over that the world is an illusion. Our external experience is nothing more than a reflection of an internal condition. But we are here in this earthly classroom to release our blocks. You know, every day life gives me triggers, and A Course in Miracles is teaching me to identify and acknowledge the triggers, because on the other side of these subconscious pain points lies the peace, love, joy, and happiness that I was born to experience. So, as my friend Sherry says, it's all good. It's all coming together and it's all good. So today we are on lesson 271 in the workbook for students. And if we're doing the lessons in order, because I believe today is the 271st day of 2024. And it starts with a preface. What is the Christ? And I think that is very profound. So, what A Course in Miracles writes is what Jesus writes in A Course in Miracles is Christ is God's Son as He created him. He is the self we share, uniting us with one another and with God as well. He is the thought which still abides within the mind that is his source. He has not left his holy home nor lost the innocence in which he was created. He abides unchanged forever in the mind of God. We all have the ability and potential, just as Jesus did, to connect with Christ consciousness. So, was Jesus the Christ? Yes, of course he was the Christ. And I pray every day in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. However, A Course in Miracles is teaching us that we all have the potential to do what Jesus did. So we can all access Christ consciousness if we can release our blocks. So Christ can enter into any one of us anytime that we connect to the truth of who we truly are. You know, Linda Goodman's Love Signs, she wrote, Jesus himself never claimed that he was the only one who was divine. And then there's a biblical quote, what I have done, you can do also and more. Go thou and do likewise. These are not claims of spiritual exclusivity. What was being demonstrated were manifestations of the divine within each of us. Miracles we all could perform, though not without certain disciplines to bring mind, body, and emotions under control. I believe A Course in Miracles is teaching us those necessary disciplines so we can focus on love more and more often. Christ can enter into any one of our consciousness. Susan the Christ, Robert the Christ, John the Christ, Thelma the Christ, Lynn the Christ, Joseph the Christ. We all have Christ's spirit within us. And that's one of the many things that I love so much about A Course in Miracles, because Jesus is teaching us that we can do what he did on this earthly plane. We can look at the world through the lens of love and innocence, just as he did. It does require discipline and focus, but that is the only thing that will bring us true happiness. Because when I am seeing the innocence in my brother, I'm feeling the innocence in myself. And it goes in reverse as well. When I am connecting to the innocence in myself, I see the beauty in my brother. And we were all born to be miracle workers. We were all born to be conduits for God's divine love. And when I can love my brother, I can feel God's love within me. Today, to be honest, before coming here on Pal Talk YouTube, I was feeling off. And now, as I'm starting to embrace the Course in Miracles teachings and the Course in Miracles principles, I'm feeling more connected to God's divine love. Because love is the truth of who and what we are. A Course in Miracles cannot teach us the meaning of love, because love is just who we are. The only thing it can do is it can teach us to acknowledge and identify our blocks so we can release them. To start in the introduction of the book, Jesus writes, "This is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time." And then I have highlighted and underlined and starred. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught, because love is who we are. No one can teach us what we are, because when we have identified and released our blocks, we live in a state of love. I mean, that's a really powerful concept. And I've read the introduction over and over and over, but it's like to read A Course in Miracles is good, but to embody the knowledge of A Course in Miracles is beyond great. It is just transformational. So to release our blocks and to embody the truth of who we are is phenomenal, amazing, mind-blowing. So again, the course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. That just is the essence of who we are. We were born in God's image. We were born to love. So that's why it's so important to love ourselves totally and conditionally, because only by loving ourselves totally and completely and unconditionally can we extend God's love to our brothers. And then the introduction goes on to write, "It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all encompassing can have no opposite. So the opposite of love is fear. So if I'm not loving, well, then I'm afraid. But because love is all that exists, fear is simply an illusion. So when my mind is in fear, not only am I not thinking clearly, I'm not thinking at all. And then Jesus writes in the introduction, "The course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." So the only thing that's real is the love. There is nothing to fear, because anything not of love is an illusion. So when I am in a state of fear, I'm not really thinking at all. I think I'm repeating what I just said, but that's a pretty heavy concept, because so much of the day, when I think about my days, I'm not really thinking, because so much of the day, I'm getting triggered by this, I'm getting triggered by that, and A Course in Miracles is teaching us to look past the triggers to the reality of love. Triggers are our teachers because triggers are showing us what is in our subconscious mind that has not yet been healed. But what we need to learn to do is see past those triggers to the truth of the love on the other side of them. You know, it's like we all exist in a state of just perfect light. And then when the triggers arise, it's like a cloud is surrounding our light. So what we need to do is we need to just, I guess, release the clouds and stand firm in the light and the love of God, which is all that is real. So I will say that I vacillate during the day. You know, I think most of us here in this earthly plane have not reached enlightenment yet. So I think most of us tend to vacillate during the day. That's one thing that I strongly believe, you know. Sometimes when I am in a funky mindset, I think that I'm the only one, you know, and I feel so separate. But then I talk to other people who are going through the same struggles as I am, or similar struggles. They're dealing with their own egoic wounds that have not yet been healed. You know, that's part of the human experience. And the truth is, we are all on a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings inhabiting earthly bodies to learn the lessons that we were born to learn. We are spiritual beings inhabiting these earthly bodies to learn how to love unconditionally. You know, we had my partner here in Pal Talk YouTube is Myrna, who is so wonderful. Myrna actually just had a birthday on Wednesday, which is so exciting. She said that every birthday that she has, she asks Jesus for a birthday gift, which I think is so cool. Isn't that super cool? She asks Jesus Christ for a birthday gift, and he always gives her a gift. You know, I called her on Wednesday morning and I asked if she had received Jesus, the birthday gift from Jesus, and she said, not yet. So I'm looking forward to talking to her next Monday to find out what Jesus gave her for her birthday. Yeah, she's just so wonderful. And I remember a few months ago, we had a friend of Myrna's, Rob Schwartz, join us here on Pal Talk YouTube. And I love what Rob Schwartz speaks about because he speaks about how we choose before we are born the lessons that our soul needs to learn in this earthly classroom. So usually our lessons come in the form of challenges. And when we can overcome the challenges, we learn the lesson that we were born to learn, which is always how to love more deeply and more fully and more unconditionally. So that's why also it's so important, as Dove says time and time again, to be grateful for our triggers because our triggers and our challenges are our teachers. Yeah, so as I say so often, everything we experience in life is either a lesson or a blessing. The blessings are fun, but many times the lessons are more valuable because the lessons, when overcome, teach us what we need to know. So I had a long phone conversation with a good friend of mine a couple days ago who I've known this friend for golly, about 20 years. We had a Course in Miracles group together when I lived in Manhattan. And yeah, she's just so wonderful. And she's an artist. And, she's really experiencing the love of Jesus on a deep level right now at this point in her lifetime. She just actually had a bit of a dark period where she was experiencing some challenges, but now she's feeling very connected in Christ, and she feels very connected to Jesus. And it was a very beautiful, stimulating, long 4-hour conversation that I had about 2 nights ago. And we were talking about A Course in Miracles and how A Course in Miracles is one clear path to God, but it is definitely not the only clear path to God. There are many paths to God. My path is A Course in Miracles. But of course, the Buddhists have a clear path to God, and many other philosophies have a clear path to God as well. I think what is interesting to me is to compare A Course in Miracles to the traditional Christian path, because I grew up in the Lutheran tradition. And I grew up with a lot of the Christian terminology. Um, I grew up in a church that had the uh, image of Jesus being hung on the cross with a nail through his right hand, a nail through his left hand, a nail through his feet. His head was down and he was bleeding. So the idea that I grew up with was that Jesus Christ sacrificed his life for me because I am a sinner. That was the predominant thought that I was exposed to as a child. I was also taught that everyone needs to accept Jesus Christ into their heart, because if they don't, they're going to be condemned to eternal hell. The only way to get into heaven in the afterlife is to get there through Jesus. My friend that I was talking to was Jewish, is Jewish. Um, so she was never exposed to this type of thinking. So when she found A Course in Miracles, she was fresh, innocent. She didn't understand what the Christian terminology was all about. For me, it was a little different, because the Jesus that the traditional Christian church taught me about didn't make a lot of sense. I knew Jesus was a really good guy. I think I always knew that, but I never understood him fully until I found A Course in Miracles. But because Course in Miracles describes this being of light that I love so passionately and that I want to be like. So it was a very interesting conversation that I had with my girlfriend. And I guess in a way, I'm glad that I grew up in the household that I did because I think that was my journey in this lifetime. I needed to first learn about traditional Christianity, I guess, before I could fully embrace A Course in Miracles. But I do think that there are flaws with how, not with Jesus, there's no flaws with Jesus, but there's flaws in how his life was interpreted. um yeah, and I what I have been listening to lately too, which is very, very interesting, is Marianne Williamson just wrote a book, and it's called The Mystic Jesus, the Mind of Love. So I've been listening to a lot of her podcasts, and I just started listening to that book on Audible. And I think it's very, very interesting. She's such a eloquent speaker. And yeah, I'm learning so much from her. She originally was the one who brought me to A Course in Miracles, 35 years ago. And now I'm learning a lot from her again because I love her new book. So, a Course in Miracles, another thing that's different between A Course in Miracles and traditional Christianity is traditional Christianity is teaching us that all the answers are in the Bible, where A Course in Miracles is teaching us to access our own inner wisdom. A Course in Miracles tells us that the course is not an ending, the course is a beginning. Because at the end of a Course in Miracles, what we need to do is we need to go within to access our own inner guidance, because God is always speaking directly to us and through us. But in order to hear his voice, we need to make sure to release our blocks, and we need to make sure that our mind is at peace. Be still and know that I am God. When our mind is still, we can hear God speak to us. We can allow God to speak through us. And there was this one beautiful paragraph that I found in A Course in Miracles through A Course in Miracles Now.com that I always go into many times prior to my talks here. And Jesus writes in chapter 10, he writes, I do not, and this is in Roman numeral 3, he writes, I do not bring God's message with deception. And you will learn this as you learn that you always receive as much as you accept. So God is always talking to us. God is always giving to us. He is always sharing his wisdom with us. But we have to be sure to open our hearts and accept his wisdom, accept his love. You could accept peace now for everyone and offer them perfect freedom from all illusions because you heard his voice. But have no other gods before him, or you will not hear. I mean, what are other gods? In my mind, other gods is when we think we can find the peace that we crave from things of the world. But the Course in Miracles is very clear that the world can never, ever satisfy us. The only thing that will satisfy our heart's deepest yearning is our connection with God. That's the only thing. And once we have that, we have everything. no amount of money, no romantic interest, no perfect job, no perfect body can satisfy us. The only thing that can satisfy us is our connection with God, our creator. Once we have that, we have everything that we need. Then we can go into the world and enjoy our life, but we can't find our satisfaction in the world. We can only find our satisfaction in God. I believe that's what he means by false gods. If we think we can find our satisfaction from anything other than God, we are very mistaken. Um, and then he writes, God is not jealous of the gods you make, but you are. God can't be jealous because jealous is of the ego. God is pure love, and he has no fearful thoughts or emotions in his being. It says, so God is not jealous of the gods you make, but you are. You would save them and serve them because you believe that they made you. You think they are your father because you are projecting onto them the fearful fact that you made them to replace God. Yet, when they seem to speak to you, remember that nothing can replace God, and whatever replacements you have attempted are nothing. The next paragraph is so good too. So, whatever replacements we have made are nothing. Like, we don't get punished, we don't get condemned. I mean, God obviously is incapable of condemnation because he is pure love. He is incapable of judgment because he is pure love. But whatever replacements we have attempted, they're just nothing. They're just illusions. They can't satisfy us. And then Jesus goes on to write very simply, you know, it says, I always say the course is so simple. It's not easy because it's not what the world teaches, but it is very simple. The simple truth is only the love is real and only the love can satisfy us. It says, very simply, then, you may believe you are afraid of nothingness, but you are really afraid of nothing. When we are afraid, we're not thinking clearly. When we are afraid, we're not really thinking at all. And in that awareness, you are healed. You will hear the God you listen to. You made the God of sickness, and by making him, you made yourself able to hear him. You did not create him because he is not the will of the Father. He is therefore not eternal and will be unmade for you the instant you signify your willingness to accept only the eternal. So the only thing that is of value to me is the eternal, not the temporal, not the temporary. That has no value. The only thing that is of value to me is the eternal. And what is the eternal? The eternal is God's love. So love is the only thing that will satisfy me. And I am so grateful for that fact. So each day and each moment, I can focus on what's real. I think there are different disciplines that I can use to connect to this truth. I think one thing that is very important is pausing and slowing down. Because when I can slow down, I can really hear God's voice so much more clearly. When I move too fast, I get distracted. and I can't hear God. But when I slow down, I can hear God's voice so much more clearly. I mean, we were born to be conduits for God's divine miracles. That's why we were born. And how do we do that? We do that by slowing down and for asking Christ all the time how we can serve him. Because by serving him, we're basically serving ourselves. God's will for me is the same as my will for myself. So it's not like I have to sacrifice my needs for the needs of my creator, because God's will and my will are one and the same. You know, it's about surrendering my will with a small w to God's will with a capital W. And that is the only thing that will ever make me happy, by surrendering to the power of my higher self. So, what is a miracle? Anything that comes from love is a miracle. And I think that what I will do is I will go into the principles of miracles. I was listening to a YouTube video this week. I'm listening to Amy Torres quite often. She's such like an amazingly wise Course in Miracles teacher. And in one of her YouTube videos, she went into the principles of miracles, and I got so much out of it. I thought it was so beautiful, even though I read this chapter one so many times. So I think that I would like to read through uh, a few of these principles of miracles, because again, they're not easy, but they are simple. The truth is very simple. I mean, the answer is always love. So to go to chapter one, the meaning of miracles, the first principle of miracles says, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. So anything that comes from love is a miracle. And if I can make sense of that first principle, you can say, well, um, if I extend love to the mailman for bringing me a letter that I really wanted to receive, that's a miracle. And if I extend love to someone that is berating me, that's a miracle too. Some miracles seem easier than others, right? But the truth is, anything that comes from love is a miracle. So we need to focus on loving as often as possible. And there is no order of difficulty in miracles. Anything that comes from love is a miracle. And then number two, the second principle of miracles say, miracles as such do not matter. The only thing that matters is their source, which is far beyond evaluation. So, what is the source of miracles? God is the source of miracles. So when Susan steps out of the way and I allow God to extend his love through me, that's a miracle. You know, God does use my voice, my sense of humor, my way of speaking, my personality. But when I can step out of the way, release my blocks, and allow God to extend his love through me, that's a miracle. And God speaks through everyone differently. You know, the he is love, or she is love, but God expresses his love through every single person in a different way. You know, sometimes when I'm in touch with divine truth, I listen to different people speak. And some people swear, some, some people don't use proper grammar. Some people do use proper grammar. Some people speak loudly. Some people speak softly. Some people say dude a lot. But it doesn't really matter how a person speaks. What matters when it comes to being a conduit for God's divine love and God's divine miracles, the most important thing is coming from a place of love and compassion, because I think we are all very drawn to others who are coming from a place of love and compassion. You know, Ken Wapnick would always say, be kind. Like, how can we really connect to the Course in Miracles thought system? I mean, it's so simple. Just be kind, and people will be drawn to other people who are kind. And again, it's a very, very simple thing. You know, even I was going into the gym this morning, and there was somebody a little ways behind me. And I slowed down and I held open the door for them. And they said, "Thank you very much." I mean, that's a miracle because it's coming from a place of love and compassion. So again, it's about slowing down, and it's about being kind. And not only does the recipient of my love uh, feel better, but I feel better. You know, it's miracles are always a win-win situation. So, and then to go on here, it says number 3, miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The real miracle is the love that inspires them. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle. So when miracles do not occur, something has gone wrong. When miracles, when I'm not coming from a place of love, I'm blocking that love with my fear. So the real miracle is the love that inspires them. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle. And then number 4 says, all miracles mean life, and God is the giver of life. His voice will direct you very specifically. You will be told all you need to know. So it's a matter of trusting. It's a matter of listening. It's a matter of knowing that I am never alone, you know, and it's a matter of quieting my mind to hear what God wants to tell me. So that's why in the mornings My meditations are so helpful because my meditations are a way of stilling my mind so I can hear God's voice. And it says here, miracles are habits and should be involuntary. They should not be under conscious control. Consciously selected miracles can be misguided. So, miracles are not coming from us. We don't have to trust in our own strength. Miracles are coming from God. And in that sense, they are involuntary. We don't want to create those miracles by ourselves. We want to allow God to work through us. So, on that note, it is 1:50, and I think that is all that I have for today. And I am very grateful for my time here on Pal Talk YouTube. I definitely feel much more connected to the God and to the spirit of love than I did an hour ago. And remember what it says in the introduction of A Course in Miracles. It says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. I am so grateful that only the love is real. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Susan Michelle, and so grateful for your sharing. I'm looking forward to seeing you with Myrna on Monday.